pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to our July 17th meeting. Please note everyone is in attendance except for Mr. Bachnight. Our first item is items from council.
I'd like to pull D4.
D4. The Juan Lynn sanitary sewer line improvement. Okay. Anything else, council?
I have a request, but it's just a request whenever we get a chance. I'd like to review the sidewalk ordinance.
Okay. Is that next meeting? I mean,
Our
we'll
next
just
meeting will be fine
talk
whenever.
about it.
Wait,
Yeah.
sir, do you just want staff to go through each section of the sidewalk ordinance, or do you want to meet with staff, or?
If I could, that would be fine.
Oh,
That way I
yeah.
don't take up the council's time.
No, yeah, just let me know when, and we can make that happen. That's
Okay.
not a problem. Yeah,
Good.
sure.
Okay, anything else? I did, I noticed, I don't know, council has noticed we're a little behind in mowing around town and mentioned, talked to Colby, his new crews they're all coming. We contracted with a new company, but, so if our citizens notice we're a little behind in a few places, that's fixing to all change, hopefully, so. Anyway, of course, with all the rain, I think everyone's behind mowing. I know we are at my house. So, okay. Nothing else from council? Citizens communication, we'll go ahead and open that up. If there's anyone here that would like to speak to council, come on up and come to the podium. Seeing no one, we'll close citizens communication and move into our meeting. We have one ordinance.
We have one item for a public hearing tonight. That is an ordinance amending chapters 5, 12, and 21 of the Victoria City Code to create a design district within the specified designated areas of the city to raise the standards of quality and development in these areas, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for codification and savings, and declaring an effective date.
So let's open the public hearing on C1. If anyone would like to speak to that item alone, now would be the time. And I don't see anyone jumping up. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing on C1, and I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, approve C1.
A second.
Okay, motion and seconded. And I'm assuming everyone has some questions. I see Julie's ready to go.
I think I would like for Julie just to explain the concept and what the changes are, and then that way I think
Sure.
the public will also have a better understanding.
So this is sort of a progressive idea, although not unusual for a lot of cities to do. But as you know, we are investing quite a bit of money in the extension of our creation of Placido Benavides Drive. And with that investment, we decided to look at the area and see what we could do to promote a higher standard of development. So that is what this design district is proposing to do. The ordinance basically creates the possibility for design districts and then names Placido Benavides as our first design district. It then states that underground utilities are to be required in the district, which is great. Whenever you have a greenfield area like this, it's much easier to plan for and create everything underground. As the new roads come in, you can provide for that conduit in that area. All of those utilities to be spaced in areas underground. It also sets the standard for streetlights to have a uniform design throughout the area. Our Public Works Department is choosing a special type of streetlight for the Placido Benavides corridor, and so this regulation would state that throughout the district that would be carried through. It also has some different standards for off-street storage and display. Currently, everything that is for motorized vehicles is supposed to be paved by per the city code. There is an exception if an area is located behind a screening fence and that screening fence is located out of certain setbacks. This design district would eliminate that exception. Now, variances can always be asked for anything, but Right now, that's not really a variance request, it's just an exception written into code that you don't have to pave, basically lay down yards, provided they're behind those screening fences and out of the setbacks. And so in the design district, we would be saying that no lay down yards could be unpaved. And the idea is to really push those industrial type developments in more industrial areas of the city rather than this area that we expect to be a premier area of Victoria. The other regulation is states that the landscaping credit that normally developers can use for in the right-of-way would not be allowed in this, again, to promote more open space. So typically when you have a commercial development, 10% of the building site, which is the lot minus any buildings, is required to be landscaped. And of that 10%, 25% of that is allowed in the right-of-way. So this would eliminate that credit for the right-of-way and require all the landscaping to be on site. And again, that's to promote more open space. The other regulations in the design district would be to eliminate the allowance of billboards and then also require freestanding signs to be of the monument type sign, which means that they would have a solid base. And then the last requirement would be to prohibit manufactured homes, which is something that we have done elsewhere in the city. If you'll remember, in historic districts, manufactured homes are not allowed in those districts. So the idea of special districts is not necessarily new. It's just this type of district is a new concept for us.
I think Julie's got some, you want to show the
Yes.
before and afters?
So this is the proposed boundaries of the district, and you'll see that the Placido Benavides Drive is laid over there. And also see that it is a lot of vacant land.
Julie, while you're
Yes.
on that slide, okay, so some of that is not in the city limits.
So certain requirements do apply for in the ETJ. For example, subdivision requirements. So if a property is subdividing, those utilities would have to be underground in the ETJ because it is a subdivision function.
So it's okay that it's outside the city limits for now. I mean, later on, that area is expected to be annexed at some point in the far future, whenever, I don't know. But, okay, all right.
So we took the opportunity to take some photos of different areas in Victoria, and we did a little Photoshop magic to really show you what an area could look like if we had these requirements for the utilities to be underground and this limitations on the signage. So as you may recognize, this is near the intersection of the Loop and Navarro. So this is what it looks like today. And with some Photoshop magic, this is what, potentially it could have looked like if the utilities had been buried underground. We have a few other examples. This is on John Stockbauer before, and then with some Photoshop magic. And then one more is near the Toyota on Navarro. So I think the biggest impact is, of course, the utilities being underground. One last note, if you will remember, right before the hurricane, we passed the small cell, or the right-of-way management ordinance in response to the small cell network nodes regulations that came from the state at the end of last year. So these are allowed in most places in Victoria, and we try to limit the regulations as much as possible, but by designating this area as an underground district, these types of small cell networks nodes would not be allowed. They would have to be camouflaged in that district.
And how would they replace that?
They would have to be camouflaged, so sort of like stealth
Oh,
towers.
like you see in Vegas where they look like palm trees.
Maybe.
Okay. They do. They dress them up, look like palm trees.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can we go back to the map, the picture, with the boundaries, the proposed boundaries? And it shows the city limit signs. That one there. I have one that's a little closer in my package here. Again, the mayor brought up that part of the land is still out of the city limits, especially closer to Salem, correct?
Yes, sir.
It shows the district going all the way back several acres. So does this district cover that land?
For the regulations that are tied to the subdivision ordinance, as you'll remember, we do regulate subdivision activity in the ETJ. And so all of this land is located within the ETJ. So that's primarily the underground utility requirements. As utilities are required to be extended through the subdivision plating process, they would be required to be underground.
ETJ,
Extraterritorial jurisdiction,
which is,
3 miles.
3 miles around, ring around our city limits in which we can apply the subdivision regulations.
So even though that land is not considered city limits, the road is, so the ETJ covers that, so they would fall under this district.
Only the rules that we could apply. So for example, the manufactured home rules, how that's prohibited, that would only be for the area that's within the city limits.
So off of Salem, say 100 yards from the proposed Benavides roadway, if a landowner wants to sell an acre and put a mobile home in the center of that, he can do that.
Yes, he would have to subdivide that acre through the subdivision plating process, but then once that is a legal lot, then yes, he could develop it however he wanted outside of the city limits.
What would happen when we would annex it?
It would be a legally non-conforming property, which basically means that they could continue to use it as a manufactured home until such time that went away.
But wouldn't that be out of, like you said, it's out of compliance then, because now we've, annexed the property.
Brent?
Are those people going to get penalized if they ever decide they're going to go ahead and build a house and take out the trailer, and they'll have to go back to the original district rules?
Yes, I mean, so if they were to remove the trailer, then they would not be able to put one back if we have annexed them at that point. But otherwise, there would be no penalties.
I would venture to say most structures, signs in the city are non-compliant. I mean, no, seriously, they're not.
Yeah.
So when the hurricane, for example, knocks a sign down, you can't go back and put it back that same way necessarily if it's destroyed. But you're
we did grant a
correct
variance
about
on
somebody
Carville
could-
Lane.
I'm sorry?
We granted a variance on Carville Lane
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
where a man lost his trailer house because of the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
And because it wasn't a city street, we allowed a variance that he could put back one, because it did require that portion of it, it had to be on city utilities and all that. And there was no street there, no city street, it was never dedicated. It's called Carville Lane, and the man, we granted a variance so he could put another trailer house there.
So they will be able to get a variance to get a trailer back in the area if they decided to?
If the council at that time were to approve that, yes.
the whole point of this is looking down the road and planning. And it's an area that's not developed right now and probably isn't going to be developed for a while. And the type of development that may want to go in there would benefit from these ordinances in place and might want to voluntarily annex to come into full benefit of these. But the whole point of planning is looking down the road. It's not looking at what's happening today. And even with the signs that we're talking about, the variances are there if the plan hasn't yet come to full fruition.
I understand that. I'm not talking about that. What about all that subdivision right there that's got all those houses already in there?
That would be completely in compliance with the district rules. As you know, we do have a requirement that within a subdivision, the service lines must be underground. So it already has underground utilities.
Oh, it does? Okay.
That's now, all these landowners have been notified.
We mailed them a copy of the ordinance this week, so they
Okay.
will definitely have it on hand before this is finalized.
And that's
If-
Mr. Horst. What is the name of that? I forget.
Salem
Salem
Crossing.
Salem,
Crossing.
he agreed with this. Now, there's not but a couple of houses in there, actually. 2 or 3, right? Anybody know?
I think we're at 4.
4 houses in there. It looks like there's a whole bunch, but those are just
Yeah.
lots and stuff.
Okay.
So he did agree. Now, yeah, this is interesting because it doesn't impact people that are already there too much. And when my first conversation with city manager about it, I step back and Julie, you know some of this, cause for concern. I mean, because we add a great deal to the development cost of property, period. I do not say that is a bad thing, but we do. So if you've ever had to deal with some of that, you kind of know, and I'm kind of an amateur at it. I don't know a lot of it, but I understand when it comes to fixing and doing things. And it can be frustrating to some developers at times to comply. But when I look at this, my first inclination was most of our ordinances already cover a lot. I mean, all you got to do is go on the far north side of town around Sam's and up and down there to see what current ordinances have imposed, what it looks like under current rules. And if you go down to the older part of town, it's not. Most of that was built prior to any ordinances at all, hardly. So anyway, this doesn't seem to add a whole lot. Underground utilities are the big one.
That is the big one,
And
but
I don't-
when you go in on raw land.
It's cheaper.
It's a lot different than trying to acquire right-of-way and dig up.
Right.
Existing right-of-way and put it in.
So-
where it's been overhead before.
Right, so.
This would be the perfect opportunity for that to occur.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. It's greenfield, as was pointed out. That needs to be said again and again. It doesn't impact much existing construction. And, we always hear that debate about underground utilities. I know, Jan, when you and I were on planning commission, there's a lot of that. Well, why don't everybody just put it all underground? Great, okay, get your checkbook out. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work. If you've ever had to pay to develop something, you'd know. I mean, this is expensive, so this is an opportunity, to me, as a test bed for that. The streetlights, we want them all to look the same. That could, to that private property rights guy, that might be a little annoying, being told you have to use this street light, but to me, that's kind of minor. I see the aesthetic benefit of that. I'm going down a list. The storage thing, it almost seems like we could just change our ordinance and take care of that for the whole city if we wanted to. That's another issue, I guess. The landscaping one is always I've always watched, that's been kind of humorous. That's not the best choice of words. I've seen places that, one in particular, cell phone tower, that put in a bunch of landscaping and it didn't last 6 months. It's all gone. It died, dried up, is gone. I kind of find that one's difficult. The intent is good, but it's, again, expensive. You mentioned in your comments, more open area, I think you said.
So actually,
That's expensive.
our,
That translates to expensive. I'm sorry, I'm not asking you.
We do allow the sod to be the open area rather than trees or plantings.
Okay. Let me see here. And no manufactured homes, we kind of have that already, but no, I think I'm willing to see how this works. I think if we're ever going to do some of this, this is how you try it to see how it unfolds. So,
We're not impacting anyone that isn't forewarned. If they go into this design district, they would be required to do these things. Presently, there's only a few cows out there and a few houses, and the cows don't care. And so it would be the opportunity that we've been talking about for many years.
Ricky, did you?
You're very correct. Changing the ordinance or creating a design district is admirable. It's very neat. It's a good concept, and I think my concern is part of it is out of the city limits. Is it enforceable? If it's not enforceable, why are we going to do it?
Well, it's-
2/3 of the highway or that road is not in the city limits on the north side. On the south side it is. How can we enforce that? How can we come up with an ordinance amending the other 5 chapters of that ordinance and to create a design district and not be able to enforce 2/3 of it?
I think, well, is it 2/3? If you don't mind, I might speak to that. I don't know if it,
Oh, well, why don't we say 50%?
50%.
I'll meet you halfway.
I guess it's a look at it, the glass is half full kind of thing. Let's get what we can, enforce what we can. And, I mean, if we want to start annexation, but probably not, probably don't want to annex that just yet. That's a touchy subject. But I understand what you're saying. And Jan was, I think, Ms. Scott was very correct about this is a very long-term look at to see. So Yeah,
But if it's
acre to
not
fill up.
enforceable,
But it is in the ETJ. What we can in the ETJ, but, I don't want to disagree with the mayor here on annexation. We will be bringing back some annexation conversations with this area, with us putting this road in. We're going to have to talk about annexation. Now, a lot of that property will be able to have an agreement for their agricultural area that they don't have to come in to the annexation, but if they ever develop, they will come into the city. So, sorry to disagree with you, Mayor.
No, I
but-
don't think
but
you are.
it-
I
but,
just-
You know,
no.
it's staff's responsibility to bring that forward. And, and also with this design district, when we talked about the Greenfield, and we hear comments quite frequently about, why doesn't Victoria look like this? Or why can't we do this? Well, when you're trying to retrofit something that's been in place a long time, it is very expensive. And in some cases, businesses don't have a choice. They have to, fire codes, or something for the safety of the public. But with this being Greenfield, it is a good opportunity to move forward with a design district. And most of your developers that develop out of town are used to these kind of concepts. They're used to, most cities do have these type of concepts, and so it won't be new to folks from out of town.
and it promotes business, it promotes beautification of the city. I just need to know that it's enforceable.
Sure.
Ricky, this is the kind of regulation that state law does allow cities to enforce outside of their own city limits, so long as it is within the ETJ. And so long as these design districts are within the ETJ, those subdivision ordinances are enforceable within this district.
Good, that's what I needed to know.
It's interesting because I'm sensitive to running development outside the city limits. And that sometimes happens, and this communities get ringed by, I hate to use the word substandard. They're not substandard, but they don't meet code. Look at the opposite side of this map. How many of you ever had those people in North Crest? Why don't y'all put sidewalks? Do you know what, that's 15, 20 miles of sidewalks out there. You know what that, we couldn't ever do that. When that was built, of course, they were not in the city limits. And then that was, Tom, what was that, 72, 73, that was annexed in?
Yeah.
Mayor
About
Karsh,
then?
what was his name? Anyway,
It was before my time.
yeah, no, I mean, I've heard about the whole story, but it's interesting. And so now we have that in the city. And it's very difficult for those folks to understand why they can't look like the rest of the community. Well, you enjoyed that, the people that developed that enjoyed not paying city taxes. Well, here you are, So and here we are on the other side, which it'll be interesting to see.
Well, and even to this day, we come across subdivisions that had little or no standards for putting in the streets that then were deeded to the city. And then the city has to go back and repair things that weren't built to a good standard. We do have better standards, much better standards now. But we had so much old inventory that wasn't that way.
Yeah, yep. Okay, so, anyway. Do y'all have any other discussion? This will come back to us and we can talk about it again. I'd hope to hear Mr. Balknight's thoughts too.
I didn't talk, but beautification, underground utilities, blank canvas, I'm good.
Okay,
We will have a second and third reading on the August 7th meeting, so.
I asked them
there-
already.
okay.
Is there a public hearing at that time also?
Not normally, but we
Okay,
can.
I was just asking
mean-
procedurally.
I mean, we can.
I thought there was, but I didn't know. Okay.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
very good.
But during citizen communication, people could speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that wasn't so bad, Julie. Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Ayes have it. So you want to just do the consent minus D4?
Sure, there are 4 items remaining on the consent agenda tonight. They are first, the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 19th, 2018, and the minutes of the special meetings on June 25th and June 26th. Second, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a renewal of the contract with Roxanne Calvo doing business as Clean Pro Janitorial Services in the amount of $29,700 and declaring an effective date. Third, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a grant from the Texas Attorney General's office in the amount of $4,996 that will be used to assist the Victoria Police Department's Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force and declaring an effective date. And finally, a resolution awarding the North Heights Utility Replacement Project Phase 5 to Falcon Lease Operating Company for their low bid of $920,000, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project and declaring an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, ayes have it. D4.
Item D4 is a resolution awarding the Juan Lynn Sanitary Sewer Line Improvements Project to J&R Contracting Services Incorporated for their low bid of $215,681.25, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project and declaring an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion second.
I
Discussion?
asked for this to be pulled just because Juan Lynn's kind of a major street, and if we're going to do some construction, I wanted an opportunity just for you to tell us, show us a picture of where it's going to be and
Oh, okay.
approximately when, if you know.
Okay. Actually, I may ask Ken to come up, and he's got a little better idea of the schedule on that one than I do. So Ken, would you?
And especially where, because it's,
The intersection of all places is Juan Lynn and Laurent. And it's the sewer line replacement has to go across Laurent there at Juan Lynn. So at some point, and we're going to have to coordinate with the contractor, is we're going to have to close Laurent down for a period of time. We've contacted TxDOT, of course, it's their facility. And we've got detour maps. The contractor will develop a detour schedule and a traffic plan on it. But we expect that to happen probably sometime in August, September.
You want to pull the map up to show where that street's? Thank you, James.
That's where for most of us would remember the old Newman's grocery store, right? Yeah. I wish it was still there.
and
but-
about how long will Laurent be closed?
We're
Optimistic.
expecting about a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Okay.
Laurent.
Laurent, it's a very shallow sewer line. It's just, there's a big box culvert that goes right down the middle of Laurent, and we have to get past that. And we looked at every option possible, and open cut seems to be the best option.
I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say that you tried.
Yes.
Did they find the picture?
I'm not sure if they.
The map in the packet
Yeah, it's
is,
in the
but it has a
packet.
black and white little line on it. You don't notice it until you
Right.
study it a little bit.
So I think the second, it's right after the agenda item.
She pulled it.
Yeah.
On page 61 of the packet. Yeah, okay. Oh,
How many
fancy,
linear feet are
fancy.
going to be? You said from Ray across to Laurent, so that's going to be
800?
quite a
think
bit,
it's-
right?
I believe it's about 500 feet of pipe, so that's
Okay.
roughly what it's going to be. And as Ken said, we tried multiple ways to get this done without having to tear that intersection up, and we just couldn't make it work. So this is a last resort. So we knew how bad it was going to be.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have one more question. Do you remember that time that there was a water leak somewhere around close to Ray? I don't know if it was between Ray and Laurent, and y'all had to go in and fix it. Is that going to be part of that underwater or the sewer pipeline? Remember
not
I
if
called
it's
you
a-
that there was water there, and then you called me and told me that there was a water leak down there?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay.
I just don't remember what we did.
Yeah, if it's a water leak, and we won't be working on it as this is a sewer project.
Oh,
But,
okay, so it's further down?
yeah,
And
I'm
the
not-
water,
I'm
okay,
not-
because the water lines go on top of the sewer lines?
Ken, were you familiar with that leak? I wasn't familiar with that leak.
Y'all, we fixed it.
I know y'all
We
fixed it,
took
I'm just
care of
saying.
it.
Water lines go on top of sewer lines, right? Yes. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's the plan.
Okay.
Okay.
Plans change.
No further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Let's see. E1?
Item E1 is a resolution reappointing members to the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission and declaring an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I see everybody wants to continue their jobs, so thank you, Ms. Solis and Mr. Bachnight, for serving on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. I had to do that I should have done that faster so she couldn't change her mind. But I knew she wouldn't.
She's moving up to the presidency pretty soon,
Very
that
good.
board. So she's vice president now, so. Yeah,
Excellent.
it's a great honor for Victoria. I don't know if we've had anybody, it's been a long time.
I know.
Thank you for
Congratulations.
representing us. Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations.
I still don't have a date for you, but I will get it for you.
E2.
E2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and, if awarded, accept funding from the 2018 Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development Transportation Grants Program for up to $9 million for the reconstruction of Guy Grant Road and an extension of the Lone Tree Hike and Bike Trail to connect to and run along Guy Grant Road to Salem Road and declaring an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Okay. I think she put the map up so she wants to brag on this. This
Well, I
is
just
so
wanted
cool.
To let y'all know, I mean, this is a highly competitive grant program that we will submit to the U.S. Department of Transportation. It replaces the Tiger grants, if any of you may remember those types of grants from many years back. We are proposing to rebuild Guy Grant from Salem all the way to Mockingbird, and then also extend the trail. And so I just had some pictures to show y'all, of course, the map. And then this is what is a proposed cross-section. We will have that 10-foot hike and bike multi-use trail on one side, separating both the sidewalk and both sidewalks on either side with planting or grassy strips, and then have a 3-lane roadway so the existing large ditch will be covered up with storm sewer, and it will be continuous flat surface. So this is the proposed cross-section. And then here's a concept of the hike and bike trail.
Would that include moving any utilities?
I do not believe it does, but I will have to defer to Ken on that.
On the Guy Grant project, there is water and sewer included in the project itself, in this funding.
Okay. Would it be moved into the right-of-way and out of the drive lanes?
The storm sewer, of course, the ditch we would cover up, and the sewer line is currently in, I believe it's in the roadway or right on the outside
Yes.
edge. We would line that. So we would clean that up and prevent any future collapses or anything.
Okay.
You're not moving it, yeah.
We're not moving.
Yeah.
No, there's no plan to move the sewer. Just line it.
And it would be a continuous center lane, even though you don't really need it in some places, but it doesn't make sense to make it be 2 lanes here and 2 lanes there.
Correct.
Go back to the previous slide, please. Okay. The key word at the beginning of her comments was highly competitive.
Right.
So,
Fingers crossed.
yes, prayers, I'll say some prayers, but I sure hope we can get this. I can't tell you how many people over the years have, told me, why don't y'all cover up that ditch? It's like, it's just money. And, this is an 8 million, it's not the total cost. The total cost is about 10 million, I believe, for this
I think we
project.
actually increased it to 11 million total cost, 9 million grant.
I have to chuckle. I hope you get it. I hope we get it. Likelihood you may have to reapply if you don't. Keep trying. But I had to chuckle at that mid-block crossing for that trail. Y'all see that? So, we've had a few issues with mid-block crossings over the years. But I'm not saying that's bad. Yeah, I'm just saying that's just the way it is. But I think this is an amazing project. So.
Julie, the Guy Grant was on for 2023, I believe, for the CIP, correct? With that, let's say we get this, the money's allocated, we have enough other projects, I believe, because I believe close to 8 million was out of sales tax in 2023 was allocated, so.
Very astute, Councilman. We're going to have to do some shifting around if this project is awarded, I believe in 2020, is that correct, Julie?
The contract has to be signed by 2020 and all funds expended by 2025.
So by 2020, the whole CIP will be shifted around where we need to come up with that portion. So what you saw a few months ago in CIP will be completely different if this goes through.
Now, there's 5 schools around that area. Was that the leading reason why we're choosing Guy Grant for this project, or are there other thoughts as well?
Just the continual complaints we receive for the large ditch and all walkers, but definitely students walking along that roadway.
Okay.
So it's a safety issue, so make sure you put that in your grant.
We did.
I want to ask council a question, looking at the map with this one with the, okay? Now look, you see where Roland Elementary is, and of course, we've had lots of discussions about that infamous sidewalk we'd like to build from there up to John Stockmeyer. Jan, that's one of your favorite topics.
Right.
And it's a difficult sidewalk to do. Something that I've talked to a few people about is you see how this green line, that trail connects to the existing trail. Well, that requires a bridge over that outfall. It's probably pretty expensive to get across that outfall and connect it to that. That was one of my thoughts, was rather than build that sidewalk all the way up Leary, why don't we extend that little section and get over there and just connect it to the trail? But the price of the bridge is what made me kind of drop it. But if you're thinking long-term, and you built the bridge now and did that little section of green hike and bike, and then just a little sidewalk down to the edge of the school district property, there you go. I don't know, it's a thought. That probably just threw a wrench in staff's plans, but
I don't
I
think so.
realize this could be 6 years from now, or never, or 10 years from now, or whatever, whatever it is in the CIP, but I wish we could do that. So just think about it. And I'm looking at Jan because this is kind of a big project to you, that
Right.
sidewalk.
Right.
On the Leary Lane sidewalk?
And I knew you couldn't stay out of it, Charmel. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
What do you, go ahead.
Well, we are going to bring back funding options for Leary Lane on the August 7th meeting. You know, we promised that, I think, at the, when we did our budget work session. So the Leary Lane will come back August the 7th to show how we can fund
I
a
wish we,
couple of options.
but y'all understand what I'm saying. I just wish we could just go up to the edge of that from Roland, take a right, and go ahead and build that section of the trail. But that, I don't know, I can't imagine what that bridge cost. Y'all don't have any preliminary numbers. It's a
Anytime we do
footbridge
the
over there.
CIP list,
250,000 for a precast bridge like the one that's already out there.
$250 million.
anytime we do the CIP list, it's not accurate past the current year, really,
Yeah.
because priorities change, or, now if a pot of money shows up and we can do Guy Grant, it suddenly gets shoved to the top of the heap.
Yep.
Did it mean we changed our mind? Yeah, money does that.
Anyway,
Well, money does that, but my question then is because of all of the other roads that are ahead on the CIP, was it ever thought to utilize that money for them, speed up Crestwood, do some other things and get that quicker, which would then in turn pull Guy Grant up from behind?
Yes, there was a minimum.
Or is that even a possibility with this grant, and I don't know?
There was a minimum application of $5 million, a project for $5 million. And there's quite a bit of cost-benefit analysis and alternative transportation components to where this really was our most competitive project, rather than just sort of a straight rebuild.
all right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. That was E2, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
E3 is a resolution granting a variance to those portions of Section 21 related to off-street storage requirements and surface requirements to allow Shopless Farm Supply located at 8906 US Highway 59 North to park motor-driven vehicles and equipment on unpaved surfaces and declaring an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Couldn't have done that better. I know Ms. Scott said you had remarks you wanted to talk about.
there were lots of motions and seconds. So as I read this and watched the Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission spent, I guess, about 30 minutes wrestling with this and ended up with a split vote. I'm concerned about this, granting this variance completely. Planning staff recommended a partial variance. Planning Commission ultimately recommended a complete variance. And so I guess just to cut to the chase, I'd like to at least discuss if we are of the opinion that we want to grant this variance, I'd like to limit it to the current owner and the current land use. This is a large tract of land. All of the adjoining properties are in compliance with the ordinance. Specifically, there are two parts to it, and we talked a little bit about it in the design district. There's a requirement of paving display areas within the first 25 feet adjacent to the road, the 25-foot setback. The applicant has two choices, either to comply with the ordinance, either to pave that area or to not put any display items in that area. Either one of those would be acceptable. The second part would be to require a screening fence for any display areas that are not paved. The planning staff did recommend a variance to that, and I'm okay with that. But the Planning Commission went ahead and recommended a variance that there not be a requirement of paving in that first 25 feet. The applicant, when they made their presentation, really, this is, I guess it's farm equipment that is being displayed there, and they talked about large tires, and I understand, and they made a compelling argument that large tires on concrete is not a good combination. But when you look at the property, what they've got in that first 25 feet to a really large extent are what I would call a garden tractor, like the thing that we have in our garage, that are all parked. I think they're parked in everybody's garages, and they're on concrete to begin with. So I didn't really find that argument that persuasive. And as I looked, as I said, up and down the adjoining properties, I see that they're all in compliance. So I would either recommend that we go with what the planning staff recommended, or if we do want to approve what the Planning Commission recommended, I'd like to limit it to this particular property owner and this particular use. It's a very large tract. It can be divided into several other tracts. And if we grant this variance, it stays, as Planning Commission stated in their minutes, it stays with the property for all time. And I'm trying to look further down the road than this particular land use. So I've asked Thomas to give us some alternate language. I'm not sure whether I've convinced any of you to consider just limiting it to this particular land use and this particular owner. If so, he's got an alternate.
Well, I think truly a variance is, if they're the ones asking for a variance, even though it's tied to their, I agree with you that it should be the single use, the owner for this particular reason. This is why we're granting the variance if we go ahead and do that. So I'm fine with that verbiage being just for this individual. I have no problem with that. And I learned more about tires than I'm a better man for it.
I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry, Dr. Young. I've passed out to each of you the draft language that Ms. Scott and I developed. And the change would be to numbered paragraph number 1, which is on page 2 of 2. It's the first number paragraph after the bold sentence that says, "Now therefore be it resolved." And it adds additional language to say that the variance is being granted, notice the last 2 lines, only so long as this property is both owned by Christopher A. Schappa and serves as the location for the business known as Schappa's Farm Supply. So that would be the change that she is proposing, if she chooses to make that motion.
Now, if anybody wants to go further and require paving, we have that language too, but I don't want to push it too far. So I'll offer this as an amendment.
So you're just saying that you just want to make sure that it stays with one owner and not be going with the land?
Right,
But you're saying to go ahead and give them the variance for the paving? And
Right.
go ahead and give them the variance for the fence?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So I understand Ms. Scott has made that motion to amend the ordinance that's been approved, or that we have a motion and a second on. And so if she has a second to that motion, we would consider her amendment.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on that amendment. I think I understand clearly. I like it. I think it's reasonable. So, other discussion?
Yes, I watched the planning commission meeting on tape as well. I hope everyone did. And they were quite confused themselves there for quite some time. But the statement was made that most of the businesses all along that loop, along that highway, have lay-down yards and are all field related, construction related. And this one, they're required by John Deere Company to keep it nice and pretty. I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to accomplish with the setback or the fence and why that would be necessary in this application. Where I can agree with you on, it should not be forever and ever amen exemption because that use could change. And so I'm reluctant to go all that way, but I'm sure be happy to say we shouldn't exempt it forever.
Now, Mr. Halapaska, the variance means that he does not have to pave or have the screening fence.
That's correct.
So if y'all approve the variance, he does not have to do
But
that.
she said we ought to do this for the present owner,
Yes, sir.
not to assigns and heirs and on forever.
Yes, sir.
And that's the
And
current
so-
amendment on the floor.
And,
That would, please, sir?
oh, I was going to say, in an error, if I believe he sells or passes it down to an heir, then they could come forth and ask for a variance at that time, and hopefully common sense would lend counsel up here at that time to go, yeah, it's been like this, it's been passed down, but that's up to future councils. But I think common sense would tell us,
And,
Sometimes it can be an uncommon
yes,
element.
I know.
and you're right, he did say that John Deere holds him to a high standard, and everything is nicely laid out. If you go to the far end of the property where the larger equipment is, you see the grass is growing up over the tires, and, you see what could happen with a different owner or with a different set of requirements, and that's what I'm trying to see if we can avoid from happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing support for it. I mean, let's say 25 years from now, the highest and best use of that property changes, all that develops out there, you want to not have this variance forever. There might be a whole different situation 10 years or 15 or 20, so, yeah.
So if he decides to sell and the new owner makes changes, it's a whole new business, and he decides to make or construct, the variance doesn't hold up again.
Like if Ford wants to come put a dealership there.
That's right, that
and
variance, it won't cover him.
The only issue that's not our problem,
That's-
and
that's
you
true.
should know this, is that when that happens, disclosure by that seller to that new owner, that's not our issue, but it happens, and people get mad. They don't disclose that, hey, by the way, I didn't have to do this, but
Exactly.
that's just why people need to do their due diligence. Anyway, that's not really germane to what you
Then
want
our
to do.
development services people get to be the ones that
Tell
tell them
them.
because they have a good record-keeping system.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Are there any further discussion on the amendment?
Which amendment?
Her amendment to, that doesn't, it binds it to the owner of the property, not the property itself. You good? Okay. Everybody good on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, so now the motion and second on the variance itself is up. Do we need to have any further discussion on that? I went out and looked at the property. I did not watch the planning commission meeting, by the way, Tom, sorry. But I did look at the property. I think it's okay.
Now, the amendment, the variance hasn't been amended to where it does not extend forever,
Right?
but we're still voting on whether or not to accept the variance as stated.
Yes.
Is that
Would-
correct?
As
Yes.
amended.
Okay,
as amended.
just want to make sure. Sometimes they were confused that night when they were having it.
Oh, yeah. We don't amend things too often, so. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you.
Item E4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the First Amendment to the third extension of the debris removal contract with Ashford Incorporated to allow for an increase in the rate schedule and declaring an effective date.
Move it on.
Second?
Okay, motion and second, any discussion?
All the purple marks are the 2.4 something percent increase, and the other ones, I was only going to ask, are we bound by FEMA regulations or, whenever we do government contracts to pay for a certain amount or a certain wage on this particular contract? The rate that you pay for labor or for, truck drivers or stuff like that?
They're bound by those federal requirements.
federal requirements,
I
okay.
assume they are, but that's a Thomas question, more so a contractual question.
I believe that that's right.
The federal guidelines?
I believe that that's right. But
Okay.
I can research that further if you'd like. I'd prefer an opportunity to look into that in more detail.
I can help out if you may.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
When this was bid out, there's certain requirements FEMA requires to meet standards on procurement standards, and all those were specified out on the procurement. Labor, fair labor, payment, minority businesses, and all that stuff. So it passed the sniff test.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was submitted to FEMA too, so everything.
Okay,
is
I just
kosher,
wanted to make
yes.
sure.
But there's
The-
more than that requirements to pass,
Okay.
to get FEMA.
long as there's-
We had to submit the whole procurement program up to FEMA just recently just to get started reimbursement.
Oh,
Our
okay.
entire plan.
Okay, so these figures already, okay, that's fine.
So once we comply with FEMA, it's reimbursable.
And also just clarify that although we had given them a raise when they came down for Harvey, that one ended in December, and that's why we're having to do this amendment now.
Correct. And that increase that they asked for then was 1065. So we went from essentially as low as $6 or as high as 725 to 1065, period. This now is adjusted. So the most we're going to pay is, I think, $925 for 15 to a 30-mile haul, where it was $725 before. So we're actually, with their new numbers, we're still cheaper by over $1 than what we were paying when they came in with the increase. But they feel that this puts us where we're not going to have to worry about that increase going forward.
Okay.
This puts us more in line with where we should be. And that's just to remind that we bid this out back in 2015. So this is the actual first increase they've asked for, other than that temporary one, since 2015.
And these prices are good for just the 1 year, and then next year
Yes,
if they
ma'am.
want to, okay. Hopefully we won't need them.
Let's hope not. And just clarification, Mr. De La Garza, our reimbursement from the hurricane, that was all under the old policy. And just because Gilbert's saying they had to look at this does not affect our reimbursement from the hurricane. So we've been reimbursed and are being reimbursed, so we're good to go with that.
And due to the decision by the governor to cover the extra costs, we still have our bonus 2% that we got for doing our plan early that we can use next time or whenever we choose going forward.
So we are putting that in rainy day funds for in case,
Well, there's not any actually money in there. What it is it's a savings for us of 2% over what any city without this plan would have to pay.
okay.
And when you're talking about $8 or $10 million, it's a pretty good chunk of change.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, if that was worth it, because the cities that didn't have this plan caused the rest of us to have to pay more anyway.
I will tell you that there are cities bidding these things out all over the state of Texas right now, which is partially where, we're finding these new numbers are coming from. It's what other cities are getting turned in on their bids. I don't think people are going to be caught in the situation they were this time going forward, or as many people.
But I think we have to remember, and our citizens need to remember too, the reason we started pushing the brush and then pick up on that Monday after the hurricane was because we had all this in place. And, we didn't have to get approval. and make sure we were jumping through the hoops that FEMA required. We had the monitoring company, and that's the reason we started so quickly. So
We had representatives from both our monitoring and our contractor here before the hurricane hit in town, ready to take a look and then call in whatever resources we need. They were pre-staged outside of town to get here quickly. Contractors were on speed dial, and we were able to start within a day and a half of when the city was cleared and ready to go.
Really remarkable when you saw other cities that didn't have that.
Yeah.
The remarkable thing is, too, is that we were done by December 1st, completely,
Yeah.
after 500,000 cubic yards of debris.
Impressive.
Great job, thank you.
Yeah, you are to be commended for
Yes.
having that in place. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. E5.
E5 is a resolution awarding the interior building repair project to the Fence Lady Incorporated for their low bid of $20,000, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project and declaring an effective date.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Part of what we have to do because of the hurricane.
I have to ask a silly question. I didn't get to this one too thoroughly. Why did this come to us since it's under 25?
Very good observation. I was going to make a comment about that. As you
Comment
recall,
away. Go ahead.
I appreciate it, Mayor. You know, there's several ways to look at this. A lot of these, I call them units or structures, fire station 1, 2, and 3, they had several damages. If you look at it as a one contract, it's going to be over $25,000. So to be open about it, we broke it out in pieces. We wanted, remember, Andrew came first. We want to do the outside first, come later to the interior. I could have passed this, but, you know, to me, from a procurement standard, the project, as you look at one, it's over that 25,000 if you throw all these components. So that's why I'm bringing this to you, to be open about it.
Okay.
But good
You
observation.
win all those awards for doing so good.
Well, that's a different story.
I understand. I appreciate that. I think we all do, so I understand. Okay. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, Gilbert. City manager reports.
Okay. April has the first one on, just to report on Planning Commission.
Yes, we have 3 planning commissioners whose term is expiring in August. Marion Wyatt is eligible for reappointment and does desire to be reappointed. Michael Atkinson, the same. He can be reappointed. He filled a vacancy in 2016, and he does wish to be reappointed. But Greg Spears has served 2 consecutive terms and cannot be reappointed. I gave you 4 different applications there to look over. Y'all can give direction now as to who you would like in the resolution, or we can vote next time. We always can accept more applications in between there and now as well.
Maybe just vote next time, and that way if some other people come in and apply. Now, if someone watching us on TV wants to apply for the planning commission, they need to go see you, April?
Yes, they can come to my office, or the application is available on our website and can be emailed or mailed to me.
Okay. They need to do that within the next week or so?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So we'll have it bring it back, and we'll be prepared to vote the next meeting. Is it next meeting when you do this?
August 7th. Yes, sir.
August 7th.
This
Okay.
is one of those 5 Tuesday months.
Yes.
Okay.
So
It's almost already August.
it is.
Good Lord.
It is.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, the next report is Julie's going to do the draft CDBG one-year action plan. And what we hope tonight is you've had a chance to look at the plan. We'd like, a consensus that, yes, the direction she's proposing is what you will accept. And then she'll come back with a resolution approving that direction on the 7th.
I think most of the information can be found on page 2, or we also provided on the very last page of the document sort of a supplement spreadsheet that shows how we are proposing to fund the PSAs. If you'll remember that the public service agencies can only be funded out of 15% of our yearly entitlement, and we had an unusual year this year where we actually we're sort of down on the request, and we're able to fund, or we're proposing to fund all of these agencies at more than what they requested, with the exception of Gulf Bend requested more than what we were able to fund. We do have one public facility that we're proposing, and that's for the Salvation Army to repair their shelter so that they can reopen, and that is a recommended allocation of $101,000. The rest of the funding is proposed to go into our affordable housing program, which is the mortgage assistant program, neighborhood programs, which includes demolition for approximately $42,000. Those public services and public facilities are represented on that spreadsheet. The public improvements, we're proposing to allocate $227,000, which includes Hopkins Park improvements, specifically lighting, picnic shelter, and a swing set. And then looking at an azalea sidewalk project to connect some of the low-income housing with as you remember, TxDOT is doing a large sidewalk project that we applied through for a grant on Rio Grande, and will provide more connectivity to the HEB on Rio Grande. And we're also, with that, hoping to look at some safety money and some other projects as far as the Stoltz intersection. So that includes our public improvement projects, and then, of course, the program administration.
Can you either pull up the map or tell me what you have over there coming off of Mockingbird? And there's a little bitty section of sidewalk up there. What area is that? What street, It's on page 46.
It's actually the extension of Crestwood. So there's a very small portion of Crestwood between Main Street and Vine. So, the rest of Crestwood is a large CIP project. This will actually, once you cross over Main towards the park, provide a very small section of sidewalk to complete that 8-foot sidewalk.
Well, I was going to have a question on that. Is there any way we can use it somewhere else instead of there? I don't like it there.
Why not?
Because I'm going to propose that we change your 8-foot driveway or sidewalk from Crestwood and use some of that money for Leary Lane and change that to a 4-foot sidewalk.
Leary Lane, unfortunately, is not eligible. It's not in a census
It's not,
tract.
no, and I'm not talking about using CDBG money, I know that. I'm talking about the money from the CIP for Crestwood. Instead of making an 8-foot sidewalk, make it a 4-foot sidewalk and use the difference in Leary Lane, because we're looking for money for.
We've got money for Leary Lane, and I believe Crestwood is being paid for by Sales Tax Corp money, and Leary Lane would not qualify for Sales Tax Corporation money, I don't think. But we'll be able to show you how to pay for Leary Lane.
Okay.
It's just your options for Leary Lane will be whether you want to pipe that ditch or not pipe the ditch.
Well, if we're going to need money, I would think that, but you say it's sales tax money. Okay.
Yeah, but we can show you how to pay for Leary Lane. Yes, ma'am. The options that we need to come back on what you want to do with the options.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you said Hopkins Park, did we already do all the sidewalk around Hopkins Park? Because I remember there were some areas that were open last year.
I'll have to ask
Did we
Ken.
finish
I
the
believe we
sidewalks around
finished-
Hopkins?
We finished the sidewalk.
Okay, so now we're going in with the lighting?
Lighting, picnic tables and shelters, and a swing set.
Okay, I saw where the shelters were, and I appreciate you putting one over there by the old folks' home. Thank you. That was one that I said, hey, they put one there. The picnic areas that you're going to put at Hopkins, are they going to be covered, or you just have open?
They're proposed to be covered.
Covered, good, okay. Any lighting close to them or under them or wherever?
There is proposed to be lighting. I haven't actually seen the plan. but
Okay.
I will communicate that to Danielle in Parks to see if we can align those together.
Okay. Well, I still have a question on that sidewalk over there. I'll just look for something else. Okay?
Yes,
And
we
I know I
looked-
have to stay in CDBG, please.
We looked,
okay.
actually, that was the first thing we looked at as far as public improvements to see if Leary Lane was in a CDBG eligible area. And unfortunately, it's right at the edge of a census tract that makes it ineligible.
Okay. Okay. So how many linear feet are you talking about over there on Crestwood?
Not much.
I'm not sure. If I hazard a guess, I'd say about 500, but I'd have to verify
Because I
that.
think you had like 900 total, if I remember correctly, I'm not sure. Okay, well, I'll talk to you about that later.
Well, and if council wishes for us to try to come up with another project, we can work on that. Like I said, this is a draft. We're trying to get a consensus on, yes, the direction is good. So I'd like to possibly hear or,
I got some thoughts here. So Riverside Park is now eligible. I thought it was not.
for CDBG, it's not.
No.
Okay,
Not
I'm
the
looking at,
park.
We're not allowed to spend money in a community park, only in a neighborhood park. And so that is classified as a regional park. So even though it is located within a census tract, because of its designation as a regional park, we can't spend the money there.
okay.
Definition.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the map and half listening. So it is, but it's okay, so
It's
we
in-
just redefine it and we could spend money in there, right? Where's Colby?
No. Well, it's not going to
Here-
qualify. I mean, that's
I
a
understand.
regional park. You cannot make that a neighborhood park.
I understand. No, and the reason, and I like Hopkins Park, don't get me wrong, but it's.
People just
Hopkins
come to our
Park-
neighborhood.
Do it?
People just come to our neighborhood.
Okay, there you go.
Hopkins Park is very feature-rich. That's not a bad thing, but it's like, geez, kind of wish we could put some of that money in Riverside. But anyway, generally, go
I'm
ahead.
with the mayor. Back up a second. Why is it yellow if it's not a CDBG area?
It's an eligible, yes, it's eligible as far as the income requirements, but with it being a regional park, we can't spend the money there.
Okay.
So it's located within an eligible census tract. And keep in mind, with the new census, those tracts may change, so we may have new areas that we can focus on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, it's quite all right. I like the direction you're going here, and some of you, this has been something I've watched since the 90s, before I was on council. I remember when our allotment was 1.6 million instead of 583,000. This is a big ship that takes a while to turn, and I believe in infrastructure. I like when we pay for things that are there for years on end, sidewalks and things like that. And, what caught my attention, for example, was the payroll for some of the CASA, court-appointed special advocates. And I realize it's just $8,000, so I certainly I'm a big fan of CASA, that's not a problem. But I look at that and I kind of stop and, But the vast majority of your funding is in capital projects, which I personally, and I hope the city continues to do that. So I like your plan. I wouldn't want to see a lot of payroll. I don't mind CASA, don't mind that at all. I think that's a good thing, but,
And the Salvation Army, we did 100% on that roof?
Well, I don't think it pays for all their roof issues, does it?
We do not have completely detailed plans yet.
But that was
This is
what
an
they requested?
estimate, so it does cover the estimate. But once they actually design the project and then go out to bid, who knows what the final cost will end up being.
yeah. Oh, I love that project. I think that's great. We get people, sometimes I get criticism about homeless or these social services. They don't realize how much we do. We just don't directly enrich individuals. That's what I like about this. The Salvation Army knows how to deal with those folks, and they can help them the best. We just provide this big capital infusion, and I really like that.
Yeah, because if you add up all the people that are impacted by the money, it's
Right.
quite a bit. It's not just, a few people.
If-
It's a lot.
Yeah, and if y'all are on Facebook and you see that thing, this is kind of funny, that thing going around about this city solved this homeless population by giving them jobs to pick up trash. If one more person sends that to me, I'm sorry, I do not agree with that. I believe in this kind of thing. There are more jobs than there are people in this community right now, I think. So, we're not necessarily looking to hire those guys to pick up trash. That's another story. But so I like what we're doing with this money. Anyway.
I do too. Looking for consensus.
Okay. What else you got?
Well, Gilbert's getting up. Tonight's the night to talk about hotel motel available funding. And you're seeing these numbers for the first time. So it's more of a conversation about, we're trying to determine what the direction is for outside agency funding.
I think April should put the 5-minute clock up. No?
I don't have a
What I
problem
did?
with that. I also can make your life easier when you sit down again.
No, kidding.
Hey, real quick, council, objections tonight. There's a fifth one that I didn't put out there, but I'll let you know in a minute. One, update council and where we're thinking, how we're going to end up the year, hotel funds. Two, every year we go through the conversation, make sure we got an 80-20, meaning 80% reserved for the city and 20% for the outside agency, i.e. meaning that we have a certain fund set aside just in case you have a lot of volatility or sales, the hotel we just dropped, you still have some money to allocate. Third is consider maybe allocation to the mainstream program budget for the 2019 year. Have some options, and Ms. Guerra has some information what they're requesting to as well. Also, in the fourth is also, if possible, can we consider the total allocation that council envisioned to allocate to the outside agency? Meaning, not to the individual agency, what pot of money do you want to give Mr. Gush to work with his committee? That's the objective. The fifth one, if you don't want to come up with an answer, at least August, one of the August meetings, we need to have an answer. Is that fair? Okay.
And they can also, if they come up tonight with a general answer and we get into August,
They can
we
change
can
it.
always change.
We can change it, just moving
It's-
forward.
yes.
And it's not finalized till you have
That's
a
right.
third and final vote on it.
What was the fifth one? What was the
The
fifth?
fifth one, it's not up there, it's like, if you're not comfortable as a unit, as a council, not making any decisions tonight, we can talk about it
Okay.
in August, but it'd be nice to have a number that we can put in the budget and then come back in August and massage it to another number that you wish to increase it or decrease it. Does that make sense? All right, not gonna take too much of your time. I'm looking about $856,000 fund, ending fund balance. That's about a $750,000 increase over the original budget. Why? Your motel tax came in about, I'm projecting about $500,000. That's pretty, I don't think it's liberal, I think it's conservative. Of course, interest and miscellaneous came in higher. My professional services line item that we pay the outside auditors and the online booking payment came in $12,000 less. So bottom line, we have a good year this year. Now, and moving forward, I'm still assuming in going to the 2019 year that I'm still going to still apply the 20 and 80% ratio until I hear otherwise. With that said, I'm going to show you two examples, two options to consider. It's not what I'm telling you this should be, at least help you make your decision on. For 19, assuming the revenue is going to stay about the same level, if we keep Main Street at the same level we budgeted for 1860, at the same level for other outside agency of 100, that means your fund balance will grow to about $1.3 million. Of course, you have an 80-20 split. The key here is that you're growing that outside agency reserve. The other option, if you increase it, the Main Street by 75,000, increase the other outside agency just for discussion purposes of 100,000. Now you have a fund balance of $1.2 million. Of course, the allocation 80-20 slightly decrease. So that's the view on it. One thing to consider, not to put any mud in the whole process, it's nice to look at the end of the year, like in option one, hey, the outside agency might have possible $260,000, or option two, you're looking at $237,000. But keep in mind, that's a projection. Your variable is your motel tax. You're going into a new year. What I like to put my eyes on is what I have to start with at the beginning of the year. In this case, option one and option two, I already got $171,000 in the piggy bank that I'm pretty comfortable with. That I know, do I want to allocate more than that, or do I want to keep within that parameter for moving forward, just to be on the safe side? That's food for thought, however you want to decide. that's what we have as a proposal. And I believe Ms. Garrett might have some other comments.
Well, you're reading my mind very well. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
never read minds anymore because, no.
Just a reminder, council a couple of years ago asked us to start doing a balance for the outside agencies because we had that year where we didn't make our budgeted numbers, and so the agencies had to, take a decreased amount that they received. So by having that reserve there, if for some reason our motel taxes do not reach the budgeted level that we think, that reserve gives us an opportunity to go ahead and fulfill their amount that you awarded, assuming they met all the contractual requirements for that. So that's just a reminder on that. Main Street, Mary Helen Barrick submitted her budget. She's asking for $75,000. We're currently funding $60,000. I asked Gilbert just to place the $60,000 in there. I have some questions that I would like some clarification on. I have not reached out to Mary Helen. I plan to do that in the next couple of weeks to visit with her about her budget request and look at some financials before I'm willing to come back with a recommendation to council.
Let me understand this correctly. Right now, you're asking if we want to keep it at 100,000 for the outside agencies or increase it to the 200,000?
Well, it's your call. Yeah, I just know what direction you want to go with.
Or you
Okay.
can go to 150 or 125.
150, yeah. I'm not
so-
saying to stop at 200, or you want to go 110, 120. I just know, as council, you just want to keep it the same, or they want to increase it? It's up to y'all, or decrease it. I'm not trying to dictate which route you go. I just need to get a feel as to what direction council would like to go. And it always can come back and change it.
Okay. And that would still give us the undesignated fund balance for the outside agencies. After we have already picked out either one or two, it would be that 259 or the 236?
Based upon that assumption of 100, 200, yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I'm just trying to,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
And your motel tax revenue estimate,
I'm keeping it the same level as I'm collecting 18. I'm hesitant to go up on it. I think there's some unknown factors probably. I just can't get my arms around it. You would think it'd be a little down, but it's not. We don't get any taxes on the FEMA folks that are still here, or actually they stopped. We don't collect any taxes on those companies that are staying over 30 days. That's exempt. So there's, I just wonder what happens if the coastal kind of recovers. Would that move out some of the hotel situation? Not sure.
okay, so in a current budget year, you projected 1,889?
No, we projected $500,000 less than that.
But we're
1.3.
projecting 1.8 to finish
Oh,
the
I'm
year
sorry,
out.
I'm sorry.
189.
How far, what I'm asking, what I meant to, the question I'm trying to get to is what percent did you collect of your estimate?
Of my,
For 2018, where are we? Where roughly?
as of right now today,
How much
Yes.
money are we over what we
We
projected?
over, under, and how much?
We're over.
We're over. Okay.
we're over. I would say easy $250,000, $300,000 easy. I think I know, I'm pretty comfortable I'll make that 1.9. You see it on the hotel tax revenue?
Minute.
The
A
available
few years
funds?
ago,
Up there, motel tax revenue at 1.9 right now.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm projecting I will end up at September. Right now, I think around, I want to say 1.5.
Okay.
I mean, I'm close to that number. Every
And your
time
budget was what?
I have to revise my projection because I'm always above it. So
Okay, and your budget was what?
1.3, $500,000 over.
Okay. I personally, I don't really want to make the decision tonight about the number or anything. I'd like
I
to
expect that.
just watch things a little longer. Go ahead.
no, I just wanted to remind everybody what they already know is a few years ago, we came up short
Yeah.
and everyone got shorted. All these agencies had become used to that funding coming through, and it didn't, and it hurt a lot of them pretty badly.
Yeah.
It's easy to go up and hard to go down. We should be very circumspect before we raise that budgeted amount, because we could be doing them more harm, be trying to help them.
But we're covered here theoretically. We shouldn't have that problem again.
No, exactly.
Because we have the reserve balance. So
What
that
goes
shouldn't-
up, come down.
And let me,
We
I
don't
wanted to
have a
ask,
Harvey this year to keep the motels full.
does delaying a decision harm your process, Mr. Gush?
It delays it, but I don't believe that it harms my internal process. The process that we have currently on the schedule takes 6 weeks, but we won't start that process until we have a firm number from council. So it will simply push back the final deadline for those applications to be turned in. It'll push back the deadline for the committee to meet and review the applications. We won't bring back a recommendation to council until a little bit later. But we're not going to compress the schedule and make it more difficult on the applicants.
Thomas, last year we issued the contract probably latter part of September or October.
I think that's right.
So I think that's still feasible.
When we do our final vote on the budget, September the 13th, 14th, that we need your decision by then.
Absolutely.
I mean, on what you're awarding these agencies. So,
That's
If
right.
it's,
The budget, and Gilbert and I talked about this, and please correct me if I misstate this.
Oh, I will.
But the budget itself includes the total pot of money
Right.
that you allocate. It does not include the individual contract amounts for each agency. So we don't have to award those contracts before you vote on the final budget. We need the final allocation of the total pot of money. Did I say that right, Gilbert?
absolutely, 100, you get a gold star.
What do y'all want to do?
Can I make a proposal,
Just a
Mayor?
second. Do y'all have,
I have a comment and a question, or other way around. But the fund balance that we're now working toward is designed to eliminate the shock that we had in the past where we didn't have enough money, correct?
That's subjective.
So that if we had another situation where we had to reduce the amount, we would see it coming and there would be advanced warning, that we would be able to say, we've got the fund balance so we can handle the current commitments, but next year there may be a change.
That's correct.
So with that in mind, I'm curious as to how much we cut the outside agencies when we did cut them a few years ago, because, we're asking for discussion. I would be interested in maybe raising the outside agencies by that amount. I'm getting some head shaking that it's apples and oranges, or.
I don't remember what it was.
It was much more than
It was
$100,000.
significantly
Okay, it was
higher.
more than that.
The peak
Okay.
of the award to the outside agencies happened during the Eagle Ford Shale.
Yes.
And I believe it was in excess of $400,000 a
Okay.
Yeah,
year.
it was up
All
there.
right, so that's not possible.
One suggestion, Council, is that I can go in there and just put the same number I have this year. I'm not saying who gets what, but at least we have a number. You still have the vote on it. You can modify it on the floor whenever you want to. Just I have a number that I can go in there with. I can leave it blank, but it's just going to skew things, but it's up to you. It's your call, it's your,
Split the difference if y'all want to make a
Well,
decision tonight.
One of the other things, I think it's philosophical, is whether, and it's a discussion to have, is we can certainly continue to fund every one of these programs that are yearly and kind of, they're fun, they're great for the community, and I think that they're impactful, but they're gone in there, or do we start to raise up our fund balance so that we can build some capital project? Is that possible to use those funds for there, that something can be used for the community for years to come and have a capital outlay versus, I'm not saying get rid of the yearly dispersals, they're important as well, but that's just a philosophical thing between us and what we want.
Like a sports facility?
I mean, that's anything from that standpoint, but something that brings people in.
I'll remind council that there are limitations on what hot funds can be spent for.
Right.
And
I'm
I'd
not
be
saying
happy to bring back a presentation reminding everybody of what those 8 categories are. I can make it short.
No, I'm just, no, it's okay.
But
A decade of those presentations.
I didn't
get
say
it.
visitor center.
It's important. No, it's important.
well, one of the projects we've talked about internally is continuing with our artificial turf and our, at the Riverside Stadium, at the sports complex, which does qualify because those tournaments do bring in people that stay in hotels.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's kind of
Yeah,
some
I
of
mean,
the
that's,
capital that you're
that
talking about.
falls into that. Anything that's going to stand longer than a year.
And it's over $1 million, about that. And I asked, is it really that beneficial? And I was assured that yes, because it expands the tournament play. We get looked at a whole nother level for teams to come here, which is interesting. So yeah, that's a great example of what you're bringing up, Dr. Young. Do we do that through a line item and just a target of 5 years or 3 years or something? Is that what you're?
Well, that's, we would have to plan in from there, but that's subject to each council every year.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Gilbert, I think I stopped you from talking. Go ahead.
No, it's good
I'm sorry.
conversation. Just let me know what council would like to do.
I'd like to propose $125,000
For outside agencies.
for outside agencies, because that kind of goes with the 15,000 that you're proposing for Main Street, up the other outside agencies, $25,000, and that's kind of comparable. I didn't do the correct math, but pretty close.
So you're kind of thinking about 75,000 for Main Street, or
Yeah, and then the
Depending on-
125 for the.
depending on Ms. Garrett's
Right, and then
conversations?
that would be a total of 200,000, but that would increase the outside agencies to 125. And that would kind of give Gilbert an idea of what figure to use for his budget.
At least to start
And,
with.
You know, it's start, and if we wanted to change it during the budget process or before we vote on the final budget, we can, depending on how many applications that Mr. Gooch brings us.
Yeah,
I'm good with those numbers.
it's a modest increase, yeah. And like you said, we can change it if we have to. Y'all want to do that?
I just-
Start with her?
Again, I don't want to hamstring Ms. Garrett. She had some questions on Main Street, so I don't want us to commit to 75 until she's comfortable with it.
Well, that's
but
what I
I'm-
mean, but
I'm
it's
fine
just a
with those
start. It's
numbers
just
in
a start,
general.
and we can
Yeah.
change it.
I'd like to delay that, just till we learn more, but we could do it if you want to, but we can always do it
change
later.
We can always change it.
Well,
We can always change it. It's just a starting point for Gilbert and for,
Absolutely,
you know, Mr.
absolutely,
Gooch, so that way we have something going and we don't,
But if
you
we
know,
set
the
it
process is
75
6 weeks.
Initially, you couldn't go back to the original number.
Yes,
as
we can.
easily.
Well, I mean, it
And
all
maybe
depends
I'm
on,
playing my cards too close.
Mayor and council, with regards to the concept of changing the number later, it would make it difficult for the committee to allocate funding to different applicants if they don't know that that number is solid. If they don't know that council has settled on a number and that's going to be the number, it's hard for them to make a tough decision between two worthy applicants when they have to come down to push comes to shove and they've got two $20,000 applicants and they want to fund them both and they have to make a decision. If council isn't firm in saying this is the amount of money that has been allocated to this program, it's easy to engage in wishful thinking and for them to come back to council and say, would you please fund them both at 20? And if we leave that door open, I'm afraid that creates a situation where council is going to get asked for more and more and more money. I think it's probably preferable for council to give a firm direction, and if you're not ready to do that tonight, I don't think there's any problem with postponing it. But I think from the committee
Go firm on
standpoint.
what we've originally offered, which is a 1,600, and we can change it going up from there. I'm good with that if anybody else feels that way.
the only one I'm hearing that's not for the 125 is you. Is that
I like 125.70.
125.70? Not 75? Yeah, well, I think the city manager would like to visit with the Main Street program person. I may do the same between now and then.
I'm just not real clear on why the increase ask, you know, it's easy to ask, and I just need some
If he wants a
clarification.
number tonight.
I don't think not for Main Street, because
That's right.
Main Street
That's
doesn't go through the same process of getting funds as the outside agencies do. It's a separate line item.
125.
I like 125 for outside agencies and leave it at that tonight.
And I would venture to say we're probably pretty solid on that number. I personally can't see a lot changing between now and the next month, but, so, Tom, you heard all that, right? Tom?
I'm asleep.
I think you kind of, everybody tends to agree on starting at 125, and
No problem.
the belief is with it,
No
we
problem.
probably
I
will
don't-
stay firm
I was
there.
just pointing out that you can always go up, but you can't go down.
Okay, okay.
But we did.
If y'all are comfortable with that, then we'll go.
Just, as I say every year, I think my two favorite topics, hot funds and the sign ordinance.
I was going to say that, but I
When,
let it
yeah,
to you.
10, 12 years ago, after this discussion, we'd walk out there and get accosted. How dare you not consider us? How dare you not give me money? So again, I love this process. I think it's much better. So thank you.
Just to make clear, 125 outside agencies, Main Street,
Yes.
blank.
We're not
Yes,
sure.
yes.
blank. That's what I hear. I'm making sure I hear blank.
And I hope to have those conversations before that August 7th meeting, so,
And Mayor and Council, I'd like to bring a resolution to the next council meeting that would kind of set the parameters of the program and would appoint the members of that committee, and I think target some priorities for the direction you'd like to see the funding. I know that we've had some of those discussions in the past individually, and I'd like for us to have a discussion here at the dais as well, to allow the public to see that priority list.
Okay,
Sounds good.
I understand. Any further business?
no, sir.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.